Hey, everybody, I'm Kat Margulis, and I'm the host of The Power of Story. And as a longtime author, journalist, and book coach, I tend to see story everywhere I go. But in recent years, I've had the chance to see how story can actually transform lives and businesses. And that's what I want to explore with you through this interview series so that you can create the life, business, and legacy of your dreams. Today, I have with me Sarah Hill, and Sarah is an award-winning TV reporter who spent decades covering the world's trauma in Sri Lanka, Zambia, Guatemala, Indonesia, and Congo. Her experiences led her to create Healium as a way to heal herself and others. Healium uses augmented reality stories, immersive experiences, and biometrically powered media to help others manage their anxiety and improve mental fitness. Basically, Sarah uses story to heal. Welcome, Sarah. Thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you. An excellent summation of what we do. We absolutely do use stories to heal.
Amazing. Yeah, I feel like it's a lot to process in one go for people who are unfamiliar with it. So why don't you walk us through, how does Healium use story to heal?
So we use virtual and augmented reality stories to interrupt the stress response. So you're having a bad day, or you're going through a divorce, and it essentially immerses you inside a beautiful nature-based story that allows you to escape your current reality. And then beyond that, we're using wearables that you would already have in your home, whether that be a smartwatch for your heart rate or an EEG meditation headband. And we're allowing you to see your own brain patterns and heart rate inside these stories so that you can actually learn to self-regulate them.
Wow. I did not have this question written down, but I'm just thinking about my kids right now. Like, this would be so, I'm just hearing regulate. I'm like, yes, for the kids. So, have you tried that by any chance on kids, or like, is that something on the horizon?
So with virtual reality goggles, they're really not designed for children under the age of 13.
Uh-huh.
However, there are some studies in pediatric hospitals where they're using virtual reality successfully to mitigate pain. But Healium is on the wellness sector. So we are, our products are used with youth and young adults above the age of 18. And primarily a lot of that is the head size, because you have to have a large enough head in order to fit inside the goggles. And you also need a level of emotional intelligence to learn that when you quiet your mind or when you change your breathing, that you can change this little firefly that you see moving up and down and inside a screen. So it's kind of like a video game in a way that you play, and the input of that video game is your own brain patterns and heart rate.
Wow. That is, I get goosebumps every time I hear you tell me about this, because I'm like, this is just so mind-boggling. And there's so much, I'm just, even the idea of video games for wellness for youth, it sounds incredible. What
We
has
call it the
been,
Yaya generation, the youth and young adult generation. And, sadly, as we know, this is a mental health emergency, and youth and young adults are facing pressures like they never have before. And so, this is just a drugless, non-harmful coping mechanism.
yeah,
It's not meant to be, Healium is not meant to be a replacement for psychotropic medication, and it's not meant to be a replacement for professional counseling, which we all know is one of the best things that we can do for ourselves. Think of Healium like exercise. It's meditation. It's a way to quickly interrupt the stress response and then become more self-aware that your thoughts have power to control things, not only in the virtual world inside the goggles, but in the real world as well.
it's incredible. What has been the impact of Healium? How have you seen it transform lives, or basically, how do you know it works?
So we know it works through watching our users use it. And we started with a group of terminally ill and aging World War II veterans who weren't able to physically travel to see their memorials in Washington, D.C. And through thousands of these tours that we gave the veterans, a lot of them had a very similar response, which was their body would soften inside the goggles. They would take a deep cleansing breath. and they would, take off the goggles and they would say, "I like how I felt. Can I watch that again?"
Oh.
So as a former journalist, a naturally curious person, we started asking ourselves questions. What is happening inside the goggles to their brain? What's going on here, and why are they responding this way? And well, we found that very quickly that they were responding that way because their brain patterns were actually changing. And so we did a series of brain maps, which led to a handful of trials and research, and in 5 peer-reviewed journals, Healium has been shown to quickly reduce anxiety and improve mood in as little as 4 minutes. And you can actually see the brain temporarily changing in near real time inside the goggles, watching these healing stories. And just as, traumatic media or violent media or a sad movie impacts you emotionally, and negative fiber that you have in your media diet from your social media feed can impact your brain patterns and heart rate in a negative way. It's the same way with Healium and positive fiber. This is food for your mind. That goal is to relax you, allow you to become more self-aware of your emotions. If you're using a wearable integration is optional. Some people just like to put the goggles on and instantly relax. Other people like to train. They want to see their own brain patterns and heart rate displayed in near real time. But it's just a tool to allow you to see what has historically been unseen inside the body, which is your brain patterns and heart rate.
So cool. Like my mind is going to all the places that story can take us. Again, the unseen, right? The invisible, the actual physical manifestation of story in our bodies as we experience it.
Yeah, and the ability to change the assets inside the stories in relation to your brain patterns and heart rate. So you quiet your mind, and the colors change on this jaguar's fur, on your stress animal's fur, and its movement changes. And our stress, our brain patterns, our heart rate, have sometimes been sequestered inside a hospital, or even sequestered as a number on your wrist or a number in your mobile device. And so what Healium does is takes that data and makes it visual into something that you can not only learn to see and interact with, but you can, tell a story with your own brain patterns and heart rate, which in turn allows you to learn to become more self-aware that, oh, look, when I breathe, that makes this firefly go up. Or when I'm, more focused, the flurries fly inside a magic snow globe. It's just attaching your own body's electricity inside these environments and stories to allow you to self-heal in a way, not as a replacement for medicine, but as an exercise and one small thing that you can do for yourself, in your own home, just as you would have, a treadmill or a bike to work out your body. Healium is exercise equipment for your mind.
Yeah, I love it because I do know people who struggle with meditation. So it sounds like another way for them to approach it. And then also just the self-awareness that comes from that, which is beneficial for everybody.
Absolutely. And not everyone they're visual thinkers. So, and some people struggle with traditional meditation, or they're bored with traditional meditation. And meditation is such a great thing that you can do for yourself, that in whatever form, whether it be visual, non-visual, if it works for you, keep doing that. But much as in your medicine cabinet, you have a variety of Band-Aids or, a variety of different tools, Well, helium is just another tool in your tool belt, which is a different flavor of meditation. And that flavor is visual, it's immersive, and it's uniquely powered by your body's own electricity.
Oh, it's fascinating. I really love it. Um, and what I also find fascinating as a former journalist myself is like that you weren't a doctor or somebody who's been in labs creating this for many years. Like just your story of how you landed with on helium and how this came out for you. I just love to share that and hear that with the people watching today.
Certainly, it is not a linear path. It was very winding path that again started with these group of veterans that we were giving virtual tours to. And while I don't have a scientific background, I've teamed up with my co-founder, Dr. Jeff Tarrant of the Neuromeditation Institute, our executive chair, chief medical officer, Dr. Murdoch Kalegi, and all of the healthcare institutions that we partner with for research. They definitely fill in my gaps as it relates to scientific knowledge. I am the technologist and the media technologist. I've always been a video person and did video stories about, sadly, some very traumatic things, natural disasters. We went in with the trauma teams in the aftermath of the tsunami in Sri Lanka and in Indonesia both. So saw a lot of sad things with my eyes. Sometimes as a journalist, you have to cover the worst day of someone's life. And then you do it again and the next day you do it over and over and over again. And my media diet that I had chosen to consume ultimately made me sick. I developed an inability to sleep, and which eventually led to anxiety. And so developed helium for me, as well as the millions of people who want to sleep better and feel better. And what helped me in the early days was neurofeedback. So if you might remember in the early days of neurofeedback therapy, they, and they still do to some extent, but put glue, on your head, and you had to glue electrodes on your forehead or elsewhere on your head in order to control this little boring little dot higher and lower. And while that worked for me, I found those experiences incredibly boring. And as a storyteller, I was inventing stories for my therapy of quiet your thoughts, and you can keep this airplane above the, cool your jets, you can keep this airplane above this. And so that was how I made it and get more engaging for myself. And fast forward, we were doing these virtual tours and teamed up with my co-founder, Dr. Tarrant, to do brain maps, full EEG cap and gel brain maps to see how does different media impact different brain patterns and heart rate. And we've done years of testing that to try to discern what is colors, what is different shapes, textures, volumes, what experiences do impact brain patterns in certain way. And ultimately, helium is a combination of, wanting to develop a product to try to fix myself. And then also too, my love of story and how story uniquely impacts people. It's how we learn. It's how we make sense of the world, combined with neurofeedback from my co-founder in an immersive environment that just allows you to see your feelings and to know that you have healing powers inside yourself, not only in the virtual world, but in the real world as well.
Oh my gosh. I just like float away when you talk about all this stuff. It's incredible. So, and I love it when I see this. Like, I love it when I talk to people and I'm seeing like a synchronicity of, seemingly random pieces of their past and how it all kind of is like finally leads to this path of purpose. It's really, really cool. And so likewise, it's like, you were a storyteller, as a journalist, and now you're using stories in this completely new and innovative way. And I'm curious, are there common components in what makes a great story, regardless of the medium?
Mhm. Yes. Obviously, there's a hero's journey, and I have always gravitated towards visual storytelling. So, when you can marry what you're hearing with what you're seeing, there's a unique connection that happens in the brain that cements it far greater than if the words are detached from the visuals. So, I really enjoy stories where the script touches the visuals hand in hand. I think there's unique magic that happens. But inside immersive stories, it was a struggle for me at first. So I had always told stories for decades through the fixed rectangle of a video box, right? And I, as the storyteller, had the ability to command the frame. And I had the ability to take my users on this journey and show them exactly through that frame what I wanted them to see. But inside an immersive or a virtual reality story or a 360-degree story, that frame is moving inside the sphere according to where that user is going to look. So it's incredibly disconcerting for an old fixed frame storyteller to suddenly move into this immersive landscapes and tell stories, because you quickly realize that you do not have control of that frame. The viewer has control of the frame, and you have to use sound, you have to use narrative and different assets moving across the screen to gently guide the user to where they're going to look. Otherwise, they might miss the most important part of the story because it's happening behind them.
Wow.
And so it's, it was really and continues to be a different way to learn how to tell stories, regardless of using different biometric data as inputs in that story. That also was an incredible learning experience for us of how do you write these stories in a way that can, educate people about and different metaphors about you're using your feelings of positivity to float up the side of a waterfall. I mean, all of these are ways that I had never told stories before.
Yeah.
And I had to learn, and I'm continually learning. And when we go to write these experiences, it's not just, a storyteller or a 360-degree cinematographer or a game designer who builds these experiences in a Unity or Unreal game engine, or a neurofeedback specialist or a psychologist. It's a collection of people together writing those stories.
Wow.
And what we've found is in these meetings when we're creating these stories is, quickly what happens, the storyteller will write the script, and then, you get inside the goggles and the psychologist will clearly point out, well, you actually can't use that language because it could be triggering to someone. So, that has been a learning experience for me as well in writing these experiences. It's not just, visually, what do you want to say, but how do you say it in a way that allows people to feel safe, empowered, and, become more self-aware of how to learn to self-regulate.
Okay. It's just like,
Yeah, it's a lot. Yeah.
it's incredible because like what I'm hearing is the future of storytelling. And like I have, I'll be talking to people about storytelling on the stage. I love that you brought up visual storytelling because it didn't occur to me to ask those questions. So I love that you went there, and then that you went two steps beyond that, which is the immersive storytelling experience, which is the future of storytelling, where you're working with the screenwriter or the storytelling, and you're working with the um, game designer, and it sounds to me like a symphony, but where the audience is also making the music. It's just like, wow, bananas.
Yeah, a symphony, that's a great way to think about it. A
Yeah.
symphony where the conductor is the viewer of that story, and they are essentially controlling some of those assets in the environment with their own biometric data.
Yeah. That is really mind-blowing. Seriously mind-blowing. Is there a place for traditional storytelling with a future like that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of people who use our experiences, they might not have access to an EEG headband, or they might not even have a smartwatch. And so you can still consume those stories by passively watching them without any active biometric input. And there's still value in that. Even that also significantly, downshifts the nervous system. And you can, see brain patterns and heart rate changing, much as if, you took a warm bath or a walk in the park, or you watched something on a 2D video on your phone. The beauty of immersive video is that it's more memorable and it's more engaging than viewing something through the 2D fixed rectangle of your phone. But I've forgotten your original question, but I went
just
off
like
on
where you take me anyway. Just take me anywhere.
A tangent there, but
Yeah,
it is absolutely a symphony that you are at the heart of it, and your data is made spatial, and there's a story about your data, so that you can learn to interact with it.
That's really incredible. Yeah. I do believe maybe you kind of touched on it, but yeah, I'm curious, what makes a good story for you, coming from where you're coming from, which is the future of storytelling? What can people bring with them into the future that we're going toward?
So to me, what makes a good story has roots in my journalism background. So obviously, things that are new make good stories if you haven't heard about them before. Things that are prominent make good stories. That's why Queen Elizabeth, passing is in the news so often, because people are interested in prominence and influence. And they're also interested in proximity. So proximity makes a good story. You care about something more if it's closer to you than if it's halfway around the world, because it impacts you. Maybe you can see it, maybe you drive by it every day. And then we're also attracted as humans to things that are novel. So instead of a dog biting a man, if a man bit a dog, that obviously would be an interesting story. You would lean in for that. But if a dog bites a man, well, we've heard of that before. That's not as, of an interesting story. And then with visual storytelling, you add the extra benefit of, does it have good visuals? And, sadly, that goes in the positive and the negative direction. I covered the negative direction for years. The concept, sadly, of if it bleeds, it leads, is rooted in fact. And, it's the same thing on the opposite, should be in the same thing on the opposite spectrum, that if it has some positive fiber in it, that it makes you feel more positive, which is why at the end of newscasts, they still have that fun, lighthearted skiing squirrel story at the end to, shift all of that stress that you had during the news into a positive direction. I mean, it's kind of like that in many ways, but stories are visual, they're personal. And two, they take you somewhere. There's a very clear beginning, middle, and an end. And some of the best stories to me are the ones where you don't see the punchline coming, and that you start off in one direction and you think this is how it's going to be. And then all of a sudden, a whale, humpback whale, floats through the aurora borealis. So, and that's a story that you'll actually see in Healium. You're floating through the aurora borealis in virtual reality. And then a whale, which has no business being in the aurora borealis, or a fish floats, by you. And the metaphor, with that is that unexpected things happen in life. Sometimes you are going to have this fish, float by out of nowhere, and you're going to say, what the heck is that? But you learn to deal and you learn to adapt in whatever environment that you're put in, much like a whale that is out of the ocean and placed inside the aurora borealis. So those are some of my favorite kinds of stories.
I love it. Love it. I'm like taking notes for my books. That was brilliant. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience today?
Yes, this is a mental health emergency and not everyone is trained for it. And so seek out some drugless, non-harmful coping mechanisms. Whatever it is that you do that makes you feel better, whether it's closing your eyes and taking a few deep breaths, whether it's a meditation app, whether it's a virtual reality meditation app, whether it's a real walk in the park, do something, one small thing for yourself every day, and you are worth spending 60 minutes of time on yourself every single day. You're absolutely worth that. And just keep reminding yourself that your thoughts do have power. Like what you think about in your mind absolutely translates into your sleep and into your physiology. And mind your media diet. You need that information in your social media feed to keep you safe, to know who to vote for, who to vote against, to know that there's a tornado coming. Like there's information in there that you do need, but beware that too much negative fiber in that diet can make you sick.
Yeah. I love it, Sarah. I'm so grateful that you came on the show. Just loved everything you talked about today. And yeah, thank you so much for being here.
I so appreciate the opportunity. Thank you. It's great to commiserate with another story nerd.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And if you're ever in Columbia, Missouri, in the Silicon Prairie, in the heart of the Midwest, definitely come by and see our story studio.
I love that. I love that. Well, thank you all for listening at home. There is a Power of Story workshop coming up on October 24th, so keep an eye out for that. Thank you, Sarah, for being on the show today, and stay tuned for more Story Nerd stories. We got lots of good conversations coming up for everybody. So thank you all. See you soon. Bye.